And also, of course, you were a member of the Grand Ole Opry back when?
Yes, I was. From 1946 until about 1952 or 56, 54, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in the mid-50s.
Yeah, they never let you go from Grand Ole Opry. They just sort of let you slide out. I mean, it's like, who was it? The general said, old soldiers never die. They just fade away.
Yeah.
Well, Grand Ole Opry people are very much the same way.
Well, what got you into politics?
Well, I am interested in myself and my child and her husband and my grandchildren. And what happens in this world is not going to affect me that much longer, but I have people that I'm interested in. Naturally, I'm interested in everybody, but I'm human and I'm interested in those people more than anybody else.
And so you decided for those who come after you, you wanted to run for mayor. What do you view as the main issues in this race?
Well, the main issues, of course, are, well, they're in my opinion, about four things. Our job situation, of course, crime, and education. Oh, education is something else now, and it has become so political and so much talk about it. And then there's taxes, which I am against generally. The only thing that I can see that we should be taxed for is for the police and the courts. Outside of that, I can't see any valid reason why the government should take from me forcibly what I do not want to give them and spend it for things that I not only may not approve of, I don't even know where it goes.
Now, you mentioned the police. Excuse me. You mentioned the police and the courts. That's only a couple of areas there. What about the fire department? Going to include them?
Fire departments can and have been, on occasion and in different places, a private concern. This is not entirely new. We've had some. I remember when, some of the outlying areas had private fire departments.
When I first moved to town only about 5 years ago, I think we had a
It is
private
not
firm.
unheard of. There is no reason that I can see that we should pump as many dollars into fire departments as we do, and because when you get government into something, I think we pretty well all agree that there can be too much growth, there can be too many people, there can be waste, and there can be many things. But when you put things in private hands and start paying for them as a private user fees, you only pay a person for what he does. And if he doesn't do that, then you simply say, hey, I don't want you to work for me anymore. I'm going to get somebody else. And fire departments could be that way. Police departments could be that way. That is not even unheard of. We have lots of, there are places that have had private police departments, and they work.
Well, I don't think there's any question but what in recent years in this country there has been a trend away from government and more back to the private sector. Certainly one would have to recognize that with the election of Ronald Reagan, because that was one of his main pitches. And yet it seems that what you're talking about would really go so far beyond that. I don't know very many people today who really think you can roll back city administration to just the police and the courts.
I don't think that many people believe that either. And I like to say that I'm very much as Paul was in the Bible, a voice crying in the wilderness. I am not eating locusts and wild honey, however. In fact, I'm getting no honey at all. This is pretty rough business. But I see no reason why things couldn't work that way. I don't mean to jump in and overnight do such things, but I think we have grown away from the idea of responsibility for our actions and being ready to pay either good, reap the rewards, or pay the penalty for our actions in government or in social things of all kinds. And I think this is where we get away from it. It's very easy to sit back and think of the government as some benevolent entity somewhere that's going to provide you with something for nothing. And this is not true. It cannot be true. Governments don't have money. People have money.
That's right.
And people is me.
That's right.
This is a generality, Jerry, and it may not get across to some people. I wish I could. And it's not a thing that you can punch a button and say that we'll do this tomorrow. You cannot do that. It's too far from that. But we have grown to the point where we depend, we not only believe in, we depend upon for almost everything in our lives for somebody in government to tell us what to do and charge us an arm and a leg for it.
Well, it seems to me that the tendency, and you could make this almost a non-political statement, because when it gets right down to the brass tacks, it almost seems like whether it's Democrat, Republican, conservative, or liberal, so many people do indeed want to see government participate less in their lives unless it's their particular handout.
Well, this is true. This is very true. The idea of majority in this country is kind of gone by the boards. It's kind of a farce, really. This country is not governed by a majority. It's governed by a group of minorities that almost entirely get everything that's coming.
Then you're saying government by pressure group a lot.
That's right. What else?
Yeah.
I don't see that you can slice it any other way. And I don't see that socialistically promoted programs by mayors or governors or presidents or a private citizen. I do not believe in that. I do not believe that I should be forced to pay for anything that I don't approve of, I think is morally wrong, or that I simply am not going to use.
Now, what would you be speaking of that you're not going to use? Give me a good prime example there.
Well, I might, for instance, I might like to have my garbage picked up by one of the private firms that pick up garbage. But I can do that. But I have to pay the private garbage man and pay my taxes too. I would much rather decide who I want to pick up my garbage, turn it all over to private firms or a private firm, if you like, and then he will hire people that he will watch out for, see how much work they're doing, see how much padding there is, and if there's anybody that is not cost effective in a private organization, I don't have to tell you what happens.
Yeah, they lose their job.
They get it right there, and there's nobody who watches after anybody. There's nobody protecting anybody, as there very often is in government. And if it's in private hands, it is my opinion that it will be run more efficiently, less costly, and more to my liking. And if it isn't to my liking, I can change it.
The incumbent has heard some charges in this election, this race, of there being a lack of communication between his office and the black community. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's a bit of a lack of a communication there?
I suppose there's a lack of communication between the black community and all governments, be it local or otherwise. All I can say, again, is generalities. It has to be understanding. It has to be understanding between people and get their grievances out. I personally think that we should have, for instance, the black community and the police. They have a problem with that. And I think that the only thing to do, and all politicians say this, but I would appoint a grievance committee or a committee, blue ribbon, red ribbon, whatever color you like, that would look into these things, and at least people would have an official place where they could file a complaint. And wouldn't have to just go to the courts. The courts are overloaded now. And there's no way in the world that they can do all the job that they are supposed to do. And we've loaded them with police things that people consider morally wrong. That's another thing I'd do. I'd abolish the vice squad entirely. I would get rid of it.
Well, now, why would you do that?
Because we don't need it. The vice squad only enforces somebody's idea of a moral misbehavior. This means gambling and prostitution, drugs, if you like. And just because you don't like something somebody does, I'm in favor of it still being a sin. But I don't think it ought to be against the law just because it offends somebody's sense of morality.
Then you're saying that you believe civil law should be much less stringent than say, even moral law.
You said it. Yeah. Moral law should be taken care of by families and by churches, by mom and daddy, and whoever's in charge or whoever is setting such precedent or leading you in moral things. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And leave the two separate. They should be separate. I have I have no reason in the world to want my policeman, who I think should only be keeping you from taking what I have, stealing from me, or hitting me over the head. Beyond that, police they have no function whatsoever that I can see, except to protect my body, my rights as a human being, and to protect my property. When he gets beyond that, then he's messing in things that are moral, and I don't think that's a role for the police.
Have you been involved in any of the attempts to bring parimutuel betting to this county?
No,
state?
I haven't. I must be honest with you. I've not been involved until now in anything that is political or anything like that. The only thing I've done is spoke my mind, which is pretty easy for me to do.
Well, what caused you to run this time? Was this the point you just got fed up, or what?
I am fed up. I'm fed up. The only thing that I could get to sign to get what do you call it, qualify for was mayor, or I would have run for something else. I think our whole country is on the same trend. The government entirely. Government is on our backs and in our pockets, and I think that we should turn everything that's possible over to the free enterprise system. Let water seek its own level. Let business seek its own level. Because everybody starts hollering, well, everything would get out of hand. Everything would do this. It will not. Water don't run uphill. If something is not working, for instance, our transit system is tax subsidized. It cannot be good, or it would be working without subsidies.
Well, what do you say, though? Let me play devil's advocate to you here for just a moment. What do you say to those elderly people who maybe have a job, trying to be gainfully employed, and yet without that MTA, they would have no way to work?
They would have no way to work. Well, then I would subsidize the MTA, or let people without all these back-breaking restrictions use their cars and their jitneys. Small buses like our tour buses or something else could run just a local line, just from there. Everybody would know who it is.
Again, a private thing.
And let them charge what is reasonable for the ride, and the old people would be happier. Could, as a matter of fact, a jitney, which is a small bus, could be much more flexible than our rigid bus service. The old people probably wouldn't have to walk as far. If in many cases, I'm sure they'd pick them up at their door. But Metro will not let us do that. That is against the law. You can't have that because it interferes, or it messes up, or it is in competition with our tax-supported MTA system.
So we have another monopoly utility, I guess.
Right, and I would let anybody get in the business that wanted to haul people, let them haul.
Danny Dill.
Time's up.
It is. Danny Dill is running for mayor of Nashville. He is a retired show business performer and songwriter, former member of the Grand Ole Opry, and is spending his time these days seeking votes.
I am.
Danny, it's good to talk to you. I enjoyed it very much.
Many people have given their lives for freedom. All I ask is your vote.
All right. Our time is gone. Thank you for joining us. And to our listeners, we'll see you next week on Community Special. I'm Jerry Minshall.
You've been listening to the Community Special, dealing with issues affecting you and the Nashville community. Please address your comments to the Community Special, WSIX, 441 Murfreesboro Road, Nashville, Tennessee, 37210.
This is 98 WSIX FM in Nashville, Tennessee. Our time now is 8:30.